What is going on, YouTube? I am Lamont at Large. Today I'm with my special guest, Jody Plauche. Check out his YouTube channel at Jody Plauche. The link will be in the description box below. Today we are at the Resthaven Cemetery here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
All right, so I came across your channel, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
You were looking for my dad. And, this place is a place that did my dad's services, but this is my uncle that we're looking at right here. This is my Uncle Jeff. He died a couple years ago in 2016. He was in college, he was a cheerleader for LSU, the football team, the LSU football Tigers. In 1958, they won the national championship, and he was on that national championship team as a cheerleader. And he is responsible for the LSU cheer, hot boudin, cold koosh koosh, come on Tigers, push, push, push. My grandfather came up with that cheer, and he was able to introduce it to the cheerleading squad and the staff. And to this day, people will still do that cheer at LSU football games. And my dad actually was cremated with a shirt that had hot boudin, cold koosh koosh that my sister bought, a little t-shirt that my sister bought for him. But I lived with him for 2 years in Irving, Texas. We lived in Valley Ranch, literally directly across the street from where the Dallas Cowboys practice football. They've since moved to Frisco, Texas, but he lived there for several years. And everybody who met my uncle loved my uncle. He was a really good guy. And in a little while, we're going to go over and see Jack Lamabe, who was LSU's first full-time baseball coach, and his son Jeff Jr. played a season under Jack Lamabe at LSU.
Joshua Miyagi, May 12, 1979 to July 22nd, 2010. You filled our hearts with love and joy. So on July 22nd, 2010, Joshua Miyagi, who was in a relationship with a girl by the name of Kristen Leonard, 29 years old, they were having an argument at a gym in Shreveport. And according to eyewitnesses, Josh here pulled out a handgun and shot Kristen multiple times. They called 911. Paramedics arrived and took her to LSU hospital, where she later succumbed to her injuries. The police had an APB out on Josh and the description of his car, and they chased him down to a road on Kings Highway in Shreveport, and just as they were about to apprehend him, he took out a handgun, and well, this is why he's here.
All right, so this is the grave of Coach Paul Dietzel and his wife. Paul Dietzel was the head football coach of the LSU Fighting Tigers in 1958, the same year my uncle was a cheerleader. He was the head coach and led LSU to their first national championship.
You probably really can't tell how vast this piece of land is right here, but they're clearing way for an extension of the cemetery. But I would say this goes back to those trees almost a quarter of a mile. That is amazing. There's going to be enough room for about 50,000 graves right here.
All right, this is the grave of Judge Frank Polozola. So if you grew up, I was born in 1972, if you grew up in Baton Rouge, you heard the name Frank Polozola. And actually, he was appointed in 1980 by Jimmy Carter, and he was the judge in the Barry Seals case who made the decision to send him to a halfway house for 6 months.
In case people don't know who Barry Seals is, who's Barry Seals?
Barry Seals was a CIA agent slash drug runner for the Colombian cartels.
And there was a movie made about him, American Made, I believe.
American Me, starring Tom Cruise.
No, American Made.
American Made. Yeah,
American Me was the other movie.
With Tom Cruise in it. It came out a couple years ago. But Judge Polozola sent him to live in a halfway house for 6 months, said he couldn't have a gun and he couldn't have armed security guards. And on February 19th, 1986, 2 years after the day I was kidnapped, at 6 o'clock, Barry Seals pulled up to the Old Salvation Army on Airline Highway in Wimburn, and 2 armed assassins took him out. And this is the judge that sentenced him. And when they announced his sentence, I was watching the news with my dad, and he said, they're going to kill him. He's a dead man. And that's exactly what happened.
Wow. This here is Freddie and Reagan McLendon. In the middle of February of 2015, they were in a very, very serious car accident along with their 2 children. They both received very, very serious head injuries, and Freddie ended up dying in the hospital about 2 weeks after the accident. And Reagan here, she lived for about another 4 years. She had a couple surgeries from the accident. I don't know how she died. I don't know if it was injury sustained in the accident. But to be 2 kids and you lose both your parents in such a tragic way, my heart goes out to them.
All right, so this is the final resting place of Brad Tramonte. You know, we knew him. He was a friend. His brother has a specialty meat market and seafood place here in Baton Rouge. As a matter of fact, this is the Wednesday after Easter Sunday. And my brother-in-law ordered like 75, 90 pounds of crawfish from Tramonte. So if you're ever in Baton Rouge and you want some good crawfish, and I've actually worked with his brother before, and you know, it was an unexpected death, but you know, he will be missed, or he is missed very much by a lot of people, and you can see by his headstone just how awesome it turned out.
Yeah, it's very, very awesome.
All right, so this here's the plot of Jack Lamabe. He was the first full-time baseball coach at LSU. Actually coached my cousin for 1 season, and ironically enough, I ended up going to high school with his daughter, and last year I spent a couple months up in Texas, and his daughter lived there, and so me and my high school, not classmate, we didn't graduate together, we went to the same high school. She was a year older than me, but we got together and we were able to get some boiled crawfish, and it was good seeing an old friend. And this is where her dad's buried. He also played in the World Series and won a championship, and he coached.
What team did he play with in the World Series?
I think I looked it up earlier, but I'm thinking it was the St. Louis Cardinals, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay. But I know he ended his career as the pitching coach for the San Diego Padres. All right, so this is the gravesite of my grandparents, Charles Boyce Plauche and Annabelle Jeffries Plauche. My grandfather was from Plocheville, which is a town of Voiles Parish here in Louisiana. They lived in Baton Rouge most of their life, had a camp out on False River. They were the parents of my uncle, who we visited earlier, and my father, Leon Geary Plauche. My grandfather's middle name is Boyce, which is also my middle name. I had I guess an uncle who only lived to be a couple hours old. His name was Boyce, and he died. And then my uncle, he had a son, they named him Boyce, and he died shortly after birth too. So whenever my mother wanted to name me Boyce, they were against it. They thought it was a jinx. And you know, I guess my mother didn't like me, so she went ahead and named me Boyce anyway. But so these are the parents of Gary Plauche.
Do you have any memories? Like, tell me how were they? Were they nice people?
They were wonderful people. They were 2 of the nicest people you've ever met in your life. My little brother Mikey, worships the ground that Gonk walked on. His oldest son is named Charles. Charles after my grandfather, and Joseph after me, because my brother almost drowned in a pool, and I pulled his lifeless body out, gave him mouth to mouth, and brought him back. So I got that honor, or we'd be visiting his grave.
What's a memory that you have of your grandparents that just like your favorite memory of them?
Well, my grandmother's cooking, so if I'm cooking a seafood gumbo, it's just pretty much her recipe. They call it Daddy's gumbo, but really it was my grandmother's gumbo. And just taking trips with my grandparents to go visit my cousins in Dallas. So we would do a road trip, and we'd drive to Dallas. It would take us 8 hours, and we'd go the back roads because I didn't have Interstate 49 back then as a kid. And so it was just, yeah, it was always fun to go see Holly and Brad, and just the trips to Dallas to visit my uncle was always something special. All right, so this is the grave of arguably the greatest college basketball player of all time. I don't know if it's arguably. I mean, he literally holds the scoring record, which will never be beat unless it's by some small school player. But he died at a very young age. I think I'm looking at the math, is that he died at 40 years old. And unfortunately, a heart attack on the basketball court out in California. And unfortunately, right behind him, who died a couple months later, was the captain of the 1986 LSU basketball team that made it to the Final Four. His name was Redden, and he is right behind him.
And who was this guy now?
He was the captain of the 1986 LSU basketball team that made it to the Final Four. They lost to Louisville.
And he died at 19.
No, it's
19? Oh, no, 24. I'm sorry.
24, yeah, because it was after his playing career. It was like 2 years after he led the team to the Final Four.
Did he get drafted by the NBA?
I think he may have played a little professional ball, but I'm not exactly sure how. I mean, he wouldn't have played long because, I mean, literally 2 years after his college career, he passed away.
And just, I want to let everybody know, I did do a video about Pistol Pete. I'll put it in the description box below. But as you were saying, arguably the best college player that ever played. And when we discussed this yesterday, if you go to basketballreference.com, he averaged 1 point less than Kobe Bryant, and there was no 3-point line but one season while he played. I'm not the hugest college basketball fan, but just looking at old video of him play in the NBA in college, he was an absolute beast. And he did not have the body of a beast, so it wasn't like physicality. That was nothing but skill. And his body, unfortunately, and I'm talking about Pistol Pete, failed him as he got older, and that's why his career wasn't as great as it could have been. But if he was born like 10 years later, where there's better, modern medicine, and they caught that heart problem in time. I mean,
or just better shoes. He was probably, if you look at the old footage of him, he's got the floppy socks.
You're playing in the canvas.
The Chuck Taylors.
Yeah,
before
very
Chuck
uncomfortable.
Taylor.
Yeah. There's all those basketball players when they were playing in the Converse. Imagine if they had the technology that they did. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about it. Yeah, I would have liked to see Pete be able to play on some healthy knees.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the grave of a friend of my dad's, Raymond Drago, and he worked for WBRZ Channel 2 local news station here in Baton Rouge. And when I was rescued in California and I was flying back home to Baton Rouge, because my dad had worked at Channel 2 when he was younger, he probably called Raymond Drago and said, hey, look, Jody's coming back to New Orleans, we found him. And so they sent a news team out to the New Orleans airport to cover my return from California. And if they never do that piece, they don't do the follow-up piece the night my dad shot my kidnapper. So if it wasn't for the phone call my dad made to Raymond, that I suspect, then that footage probably never is captured.
Yeah, dude, millions of people would not have seen what transpired at the airport.
So I suspect this was his connection.
Okay, guys, that concludes another video. I want to thank my very special guest, Jody Plauche. He has a YouTube channel. It'll be in the link in the description box below. Go ahead and check that out. And we'll catch up with you on the next vlog. Peace out.